Welcome to the third AMA summary for the GitLab Innovation Pitch Competition. We run these AMAs weekly on the Discord server, and we wanted to post a summary for people who can't join us at the time that they're hosted. So today we did a lightning talk on public speaking for crafting your pitch submission, and then we had some questions from the audience. So I'll go through the lightning talk so that you can be up to date, and then I'll share the questions with you as well, so there's nothing that you've missed of the competition. If you're not aware, we're running this innovation pitch competition on DevPost, and we're giving away up to $30,000 in prizes for an innovative pitch and proof of concept on GitLab. Your projects can expand on our existing CI/CD component catalog. You can do AI experiments on GitLab or with GitLab, and you can contribute to the development of GitLab or contribute to social impact for the wider GitLab community. You can check out gitlab.devpost.com for all of the details. Today, we're going to cover a couple of things to help you prepare your submission videos. So last week, Abu Bakr covered the SCQA Framework. So we're going to apply that framework as well as some public speaking tips to give you a kind of clear structure and rubric for putting together your submissions, as I know that 2.5 minutes can be difficult to record. If you have any questions about this presentation as a summary video, feel free to drop your questions on the Dev Post discussion tab or join us in the GitLab community Discord and ask your questions directly. I'll also go over like an example of a pitch, like a fake idea, and how I would structure it for the competition. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of information as well as some examples that you can use to get started with your submissions. Reviewing the SCQA framework that we learned, I'll also leave a link to the presentation that Abu Bakr did that goes more in depth on this framework and helps you understand the different components of it. But as an overall review, the SCQA framework stands for Situation, Complication, Question, and Answer. It's a very powerful way to structure your pitch, especially if you're putting together a very short elevator pitch style. For a tech demo specifically, you can start with what's happening with the technology landscape and this current tool or technology that you're looking at. That's the situation. You want to identify a gap or an issue or a problem with that technology that users are facing. That's your complication. You want to pose a question about how you can fix that complication. That's your question. And I personally like to pose this question as a how can we do X? So maybe you're fixing something. So it would be like, how can we fix the thing that you're about to fix? And I think that really helps putting you in the frame of mind where you can think of it as a solution, and answering the how can we question is where you would introduce your tech solution. And so that's the answer in the SCQA. So once you've got your framework and you've got this like high level understanding of where you started, what is it that you're solving, how you're solving this thing, why that solution is unique, and then the solution itself, you also want to consider your audience. A lot of times when we give talks at conferences, we take a look at who's going to be in the audience. What is it that is most useful for them? What is it that they want to take away from this information? So in regards to this pitch competition, you want to consider the judging criteria. What is it that these judges are looking for? What are the backgrounds of these judges? And as you can see, we have people from all over the GitLab organization, from the marketing organization to engineers. And so you want to make sure that your pitch is innovative, that you're giving just enough detail without going too much into the weeds about something specific. One of the things I talked about in the AMA today was, as someone with a technological background, I tend to get very excited about the implementation details. And something I have to remind myself personally when I'm giving like a lightning talk or a 2.5 minute submission pitch is that not everyone understands the technical details. So while I might want to go into details about something like an API endpoint that I used that was really cool and I had to come around with a workaround in Node.js to solve, like that may not be relevant to the overall key messages of your pitch. And so I would really encourage you to write down everything that you want for your pitch and then look at it from the lens of, is this pitch innovative and detailed, but accessible to everyone who's going to be reviewing it? I'm not saying you should leave out your technical implementation. You should include some of it. Don't ever get stuck in the weeds, especially with such a small submission time limit. Some general public speaking tips for putting together this pitch that I thought would be useful to you. One of the things that I personally do is I start by outlining the key points that I want to cover in an elevator pitch submission. Maybe this is 5 sentences, maybe this is 10. If you're verbose like me, it's likely 10, and then you'll start to cut it down and think about situation, complication, answer, and start writing out sentences. So like, this tool helps people do this. We are solving this problem to do this. And once you have those sentences, like I personally like to work with Post-its or index cards. And if I know that my pitch is 2.5 minutes long, for me, that's about 8 to 9 sentences at my speaking speed, at my normal coherent speaking speed. And so I would even have 8 postcards, and on each postcard, I'll write one sentence. That's a key message of my product. Then I'll move on to summarize the key features of the product. So there's a difference between the situation, the context, what you're solving, and then what is it that you have built. And so it's important to take the time to write out the high level sentences for both. So think about questions: what problem am I solving? What makes this product unique? And how did I build it? What market does it address? And you can take a lot of inspiration from the judging criteria, because those are the key questions, the key categories that you want to slot your answers into. And then once you have key points, key features, you have a bunch of sentences, you have something that you can now work to put together into a script or pitch for 2.5 minutes. Now, I personally love scripts. I think they make me feel more prepared, more confident. Having written down what I want to say gives me the opportunity to focus on my delivery. Where do I want to emphasize something? Where do I want to be a little extemporaneous? Where do I want to like take the time to tell a story, to pause, to capture the audience with some enthusiasm or something mysterious? And I think delivery improves if I'm prepared. But I know that people have different ways of speaking, they have different ways of preparing themselves. And so do what works best for you, and then practice your delivery the way that works best for you and with how you're comfortable. And then adjust your jargon to fit your audience. I cannot reiterate enough how important it is to look at the judges and the judging criteria once you've prepared all of your content. For example, when I was preparing an example, which we'll go over next, to apply the framework that we learned last week from Abu Bakr, I realized that I didn't address the total addressable market. And so I think there's always a chance that you're missing something from the judging criteria. So I would always recommend going back to the judging criteria and just making sure that you've checked off everything with at least 1 sentence or 2 sentences to make sure that your pitch is solid across the board. Now, I thought it would be fun to apply the SCQA framework using example. I think it'll really help cement this idea of putting a pitch together and how I would phrase this pitch. So I came up with an example idea called video stream MRs. This is disclaimer, this is not a real feature. So here's how I would put together some of the sentences of this pitch. There's a rise of remote dev teams. So a lot of people are working remotely now after the pandemic, and you'll find that developer teams are also working remotely. Historically, these teams may have worked in an office when they were doing merge request reviews. So there was an opportunity for you to sit with your senior developer and go over the merge request together. Now that happens a lot on the merge request itself, and sometimes the back and forth and looking at the comments and reviewing might take a few days asynchronously and might be very overwhelming for someone who isn't used to it. And so the question I want to ask is, how can we make these merge request reviews more efficient, more personal, and more fun? And the thing that I built to answer this is Video Stream MR is a video call that happens when 2 people are working on a merge request and brings members face to face with each other and allows them to collaborate more effectively, enhance each other's understanding, and speed up their decision making around the code so that the whole project team can deliver software faster. So that's a little bit about how I would put a pitch together for a video stream MR. Those are the kinds of sentences that I would use. It's the story that I would tell. I think it could be better enhanced by telling a story about a junior developer who is learning how to do MRs and wants to improve. And that's the story that I could use in order to show the value of a product like video stream MRs. Now, as you're putting that together, a few other things that you can keep in mind. You don't have to do all of this, but some things to keep in mind. It's good to use visuals if you have screenshots of your product, or if you have a technical demo that you can click through. I think that's really important to show your proof of concept and show your work, but also more powerful that when you're telling this story about solving a problem, you're actually showing the problem being solved. I would also, again, I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but review the judging criteria. Sometimes we get really excited about something, we get deep into it, and then we forget that we didn't address something. So, like I said, in my little video stream MR pitch, I don't really talk about the total addressable market. I don't talk about the scalability of video calls in your browser. And so those are important things that if I had gone back and reviewed the judging criteria as a pitch, I would have been able to add those in, and my pitch would have been more enhanced by it. And finally, review and feedback. I know not everyone has the opportunity and time to submit excellent videos to hackathons in their free time. So if you have the time and the capacity, it's always good to get at least one round of feedback. Right, so that's everything I have for the lightning talk. Let's move on to the questions that we received from the audience during the AMA. I posted a list of all the questions and answers in the discussions tab on the dev post. So if you navigate to discussions on gitlab.devpost.com, you'll see the Q&A from AMA number 3, and you can also review these questions here. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to leave a comment, open a new discussion post, or join us on the Discord and ask us there. Let's go over a few of the questions together so that you're up to date on the competition. So if we're building an application for a cloud provider, is that applicable? While we can't comment on specific applications or project submissions, because we want to be fair to all of the registrants that aren't able to join us for these AMAs, as long as your application meets the judging criteria and builds value to the GitLab community or GitLab users or GitLab itself, yes, it can be built for a cloud provider. It's up to you to review those judging criteria and decide if it meets those criteria. Another question we received was, I'm building an extension for GitLab Duo. If I'm using a specific repository to test the AI, will there be concerns around licensing or legal issues? We recommended that you review the license on that repository. If there isn't one, recommend reaching out to the maintainers or finding a different project to use with AI that allows you to use it for an AI project. Question number 3, do we need to use GitLab Duo for our submission? No, you are not required to use GitLab Duo. We'd love to see you use or build upon our AI experiments, but that is an example of something that you could have submitted to the project. So if you'd like to conduct AI experiments on or with GitLab, that's an example of a project that you could submit. We received this question about whether 2 or more GitLab GPU runners can share their VRAM. This is something that I was not an expert in. And so Abu Bakr and I will follow up on this question, and we'll update this with an answer as well as provide an answer in the Discord for the user who asked this question. In regards to key terms that grab viewers of the presentation, what words or phrases would you think grab people who are listening? So we shared a couple of things in regards to this question. To summarize, if it works for your project, you could include something like a hook, something that pulls people into your presentation. Maybe it brings them into the story of the tool. Maybe it brings them into why it solves a problem. As an example, for my fake hackathon submission of video stream MR, I could say something like, aren't you tired of back and forth comments on MRs and not understanding what your senior developer really wants? And a question like that might hook someone in. And then I can say, well, I've built this tool to help improve the communication and efficiency on remote dev teams that are doing a lot of merge requests, and this will help speed them up. And formatting in that hook style could work for you if your project is solving a very direct problem in that way. Another thing you could do is center your user. Who is your application for? What problem does it solve, and who does it solve it for? And you can lead with that. Are you a junior developer who's having a hard time and feeling overwhelmed by merge requests? Like, Video Stream MR will help you get on the same page as your senior developer. And something like that will also help because you could use that as your pitch inside your pitch. Once you tell that story in the beginning and then you share your product, you share the addressable market, you talk about the value prop, you show the actual proof of concept, at the end, you could say something like, and this will help speed up the onboarding of your junior developers because they get FaceTime with their mentors and they're able to learn quickly. thanks to this product. And so you can close the loop on that user story as well. And I think that's another effective way to grab viewers and then remind them of the value of your project. And then finally, how can I showcase a great story and proactively show my skill as a product manager? I'm personally not a product manager, but this is the advice that I would give you. Once you have your pitch in an SCQA format, you can add some flair. So once you have your key messages and you've highlighted what it is that you want to convey about your project, you can add some story to it. Maybe it's showcasing the situation, maybe it's showcasing the user, like we talked about. And so telling that story and closing that story within 2.5 minutes in engaging in innovative way, while also covering some of the things like addressing market and why your product is valuable. That's really the highlight of the pitch. And that's how you can show your skills as a product manager, as someone who deeply understands the value of the product and the value that it brings to other people. You want to be able to translate what you do into that pitch format. And I recognize that not everyone feels comfortable with telling a story, so it doesn't have to be so fancy. It could be a very direct approach. This is a problem that we've noticed. This is how we've solved it. So it's a problem for remote dev teams to be on the same page on large feature builds. One way to solve this most efficiently, and like we say at GitLab, a boring solution for this that works and works iteratively and can be built upon is video stream MR, and it allows team members to be face to face. And this boosts efficiency by maybe there's a statistic. And so you don't always have to put everything into the story format. That's just something that I personally do. It can also be very straightforward. You just state the facts, you state the problem that you're solving, you state the value, and you close it out. And that can also be a really effective pitch submission. If you have any questions about the hackathon or follow-up questions about this summary or presentation, please leave a comment on the discussion post, open a new discussion post on DevPost, or join us in the Contribute channel on the GitLab community Discord. I'll drop all of those links in the description down below. We're looking forward to seeing all of your submissions. Best of luck and take care.